Hello and welcome to another mini episode of What the Faux Travel Podcast with Nick and Amy. This one is all about long-term travelling.
Welcome everyone, thanks for listening. Like Amy said, this time round for this mini episode, we're talking about long-term travel because we've been travelling for 2.5 months, so we're experts now on long-term travel.
We know what we're talking about.
But no, in all seriousness, knowing that we've got this big trip ahead of us, it's only just started, but it's a whole different mentality when you're travelling, when you know it's long-term. So we're going to break this show down into a few different categories. We're going to start with preparing for a big trip. We'll also talk about budget, and we're going to be very honest about money. We'll be talking about accommodation, pace of travel, homesickness, and tips and hacks.
As well as taking some of your questions, because a few weeks ago on Instagram and Facebook, we asked you if you wanted us firstly to talk about long-term travel, and secondly, what questions do you have for us? So if you missed that because you don't follow us, then definitely follow us because we're going to be asking you more questions in the future and you can get yourself on the podcast.
This episode is sponsored by Storyteller, the travel accessories company that helps provide access to a quality education for individuals in less privileged areas of the world.
So let's start with preparation, shall we?
Yes, let's prepare to prepare.
What's that saying? Failure to prepare is to prepare to fail.
Yeah, I guess that's it, yeah.
Anyway, so before we went travelling, we knew for a year and a half really that we wanted to do it. So that was about how long we saved, wasn't it? A year and a half?
Yeah, about that, but we kind of made the decision maybe a little bit before that because we found out you were in some debt, Nick.
Yeah, okay. So I guess really to start saving for travel, we first had to pay off some credit card debt, which I have spoke about before. But it was a bit frustrating. So all the money we were saving wasn't going towards travel; it was just going towards paying that off.
Well, it was technically going towards travel because it's paying off what we'd already done.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Before you go travelling, first pay for previous travels. So, yeah, that took maybe, 6 months, maybe a bit longer to pay off that credit card debt, which we both contributed to. You helped a lot with that, Amy. Thanks.
Yeah. No worries, mate. That's all right.
But, then, of course, because we couldn't go away with debt, because then every month we'd just be paying credit card fees. So once that was all paid off, I reckon it was about a year and a half, we were proper saving for this trip. And we just had to change our lifestyle at home, really. So it's funny because now we're traveling. We're traveling every day, trying to be as cheap as possible. But we've been living like that for about 2 years now, really, haven't we?
Yeah, I guess we have got used to it. And don't worry, we will be going into budget in the next part of this to kind of go through numbers with you on how we're traveling, just so you can take it as a guidance. But I would say saving wasn't too difficult for us, which was quite amazing, really, because since that, not that we didn't care about money, that sounds really privileged, but it was more that if we had the money, we would spend it.
Yeah, and we used to eat out a lot, didn't we? Or get takeaways, or just do things on weekends. Whereas we just changed a few things, and it was actually really easy. Make your own lunch for work rather than buy lunch. This is all simple stuff, but if you think about it, if you're paying £5 a day for lunch, times that by 25 quid in a week, 100 quid in a month. So making our own lunches, things like that. I even cancelled my beloved Sky Sports subscription. But, things like that, which we realised we didn't need. It was just a luxury. Why are you laughing?
I thought you was going to say, I cancelled my beloved cancer research payment, because you did actually do that.
Okay, that's actually true. So another thing I cut out, but this is going to sound like I'm a bad person, but I'm a good person for doing it in the first place. I reckon about 10 years, it was actually, about 10 years, I was paying...
£10 a month, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's not massive. I'm not a hero.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, but for 10 years, £10 a month, it's a cause I think is well
worth it.
And
also, and this is incredibly lucky for you, just as a side point, people normally pay stuff like that when they've had a personal incident or they've lost someone to that disease. But, I mean...
Yeah, there was no
Luckily,
real reason behind
You
it.
haven't. No, you were just giving money.
Yeah, so,
So
money.
you're a good person.
But that's another thing we cut back on, money that we were paying to charities. I'm not saying there was loads. There was actually an air ambulance and cancer research I paid towards. I'm just being very honest, putting all the facts on the table.
Should we just talk about how much of a great person you are?
Well, I'm not a great person because I cancelled those. But, stuff like that. Cancelling direct
so
debits.
I could travel and be self.
I know, this is bad. We're just being honest, all right? So we really cut back and, ate in a lot more. And by the time we got used to it, I was then thinking, like, what did we used to spend all our money on?
It's quite shocking, really.
Yeah, and when we were, because obviously we were both working full-time jobs, and when we cut back on loads of things, I believe between the two of us, we were able to save about £1,000, if not a bit more, £1,000 a month. But then what was that money going on before? Scary, isn't it?
It's really scary. And also, when you're saving, a big part of that is motivation, and keep thinking about traveling, keep yourself motivated so that you keep saving. And one of the ways that we did that was, listening to podcasts like this, firstly, but secondly, we watch a lot of YouTube travel channels, and they helped so much. So every day we'd come home from work, cook dinner, and sit down and watch YouTube. And it really did keep us motivated, didn't it?
Yeah, it keeps it in the front of your mind. Why you're doing this, why you're living a boring life at home. It's for something greater. You're absolutely right. And of course, YouTube. It's not like Sky. You don't have to pay for YouTube. That's completely free.
So the other parts of preparing for your trip as well is obvious things like visas and injections. That was only something that we only looked at injections like a month before, and we were like, ew, that needs to be done. But yeah, I'd say like 3 months before is a good time, especially for stuff like yellow fever. Luckily, we'd had that before. So if you're heading to South America, especially Brazil, you absolutely have to get your yellow fever injection, which in the UK I believe costs about £75-ish, but you're not allowed into the country unless you have proof that you've had that injection. So just obviously by this point you're going to know roughly where you're going, but make sure that you get your injections and look at visas as well. We have kind of been relaxed about visas, so we get them on arrival.
Yeah, we've just been lucky that the countries we've been to, Egypt, Jordan, actually, no, I'll mention Jordan in a bit. Egypt and Turkey, where we're recording right now, you can just turn up and pay for a visa. And this is in 2018, well, the end of 2018. This might change at some point in the future, but you just look on your own government's advice website and boring stuff. But just while I mentioned Jordan, we did. Luckily, we were told while we were travelling to go online and buy what's called a Jordan Pass, which we will mention more in our Jordan episode. So just do your research, the countries you're going to. We're quite lucky from the UK that our passport is pretty good. So there's lots of countries, especially around South America, lots of countries you can go to where you don't need a visa.
If you're long-term traveling, another part of preparation is, of course, quitting the job that you have and selling all of your belongings if you don't want to keep them. So in our instance, we quit both of our jobs, we sold our car, we sold all of the furniture in our flat. We were privately renting, so we didn't have to sell our apartment. That just went. But all of the furniture inside was ours, which we did a few different things. So we sold them on eBay, on Facebook, and we did a boot sale. Now, what did you think of the boot sale, Nick?
Waste of time and effort. Like, okay, we got 70 quid in the end, but you have to pay for the boot sale, which could be like, I don't know, 10 or 15 pound. And it's so much effort. You have to wake up really early and you have to really haggle with people. And in the end, like, we were selling things, which there was a backpack which we wanted to sell, and it's worth it's in good condition. It's worth like 50 or 60 quid. And I'm arguing with a guy because he didn't want to pay a £5 for it. And then I'm actually thinking, wait, I don't want to sell it for a £5. So I didn't like a boot sale. I know some people do like it. The best thing for us definitely was eBay and Facebook. You've got that marketplace thing on Facebook, which was actually pretty good for selling our stuff, wasn't it?
It was brilliant. So obviously everybody knows that eBay, they take a fee from you, but Facebook for now in 2018 is completely free to sell on the marketplace. And it was good. People just came around, picked up the item and gave you the cash, and it was really exciting. This is another side of the motivation as well, when you're getting closer, where you may be getting kind of cold feet and nervous about it, but when you're selling your belongings and then like get all this cash, we kept it in like a ice cream pot, which actually, Charlie Keep, if you're listening, you came round and brought us some cakes once, and that pot that you brought it in, that ice cream pot, ended up being our little money tin.
Yeah, our travel fund. That's true.
And it was really cool just to see that cash constantly kind of going in there, even though items from our house were going missing. But it actually was really exciting and really thrilling, wasn't it?
I liked selling our stuff. The more we sold and then the less stuff we had, and then obviously the more money we had, the more excited I got. It wasn't scary. It was quite refreshing and therapeutic to sell all of our stuff. And it has made us both think, when we are ever back home, settled, and we do have a house or an apartment or whatever, I want it to be a minimalist house, because I realised we had so much crap that we didn't need, forgot we had it. So it was good to get rid of it and bring in some travel money.
Also stuff that we'd bought from traveling, like souvenirs and things, which is another thing that we're really enjoying on this trip, is that you can walk past all of these markets and have a look and know, actually, I'm not going to buy any of this because I can't keep it in my backpack. And I'm surprised how much I'm enjoying that.
Yeah, it's quite liberating just to think it's not even an option. We can't buy souvenirs. We've got nowhere to put them. But when we did sell a lot of our stuff, of course, we didn't sell completely everything. We do have some stuff back home in storage. Well, with family, obviously, we didn't want to pay for storage. So our family does have some stuff, doesn't it? But
just like our wedding stuff.
Yeah, really sentimental, important things, and a lot of clothes that we couldn't take with us because we want to travel light. But yes, most of our stuff, TV, furniture, we sold, and it was great. I liked getting rid of it. But as well as selling stuff, I know, Amy, you mentioned before quitting jobs, and that can be quite scary. I'll ask you in a second, Amy, what you thought about quitting your job and telling your boss. But for me, it was a big deal. I worked for a family company for like 10 years. It was my uncle's company. And I felt like I was breaking up with someone, telling him I was quitting, and he was shocked. I don't think he really ever expected it. But once you just do it, like rip off the band-aid, do it quickly, him and all my colleagues were really understanding, and they kind of said, it makes sense. I see why you're doing it. So if anyone's worried about quitting your job, I think people will be nicer than you think they will be, if that makes any sense. But then I think you found, Amy, it was quite hard for you to leave your job, because once everyone knew you were leaving, everyone was so nice, and they threw you a big party, and they made you a video as well. And you get this feeling, actually my mum said this, she said, sometimes when you leave a job, you then realise, oh, everyone's really nice, and I didn't realise everyone liked me so much. If I knew this, I never would have left in the first place. But how did you find leaving your job?
Yeah, well, I found it quite tough towards the end for sure, because I got on really well with my work colleagues. I love them all so much. Like you said, they made me this video at the end, which I never cry at work. I'm not that type of person, and I was absolutely bawling it. And it was this 16-minute video, and they're all talking in different languages. It was so much effort had gone into it. I love them all so much, but it's just pushed me to stay in touch with them all. So we're all in like WhatsApp groups and stuff. And so, I still feel part of the team actually. But it was tough because I loved my job. But, it's all about priorities. I know that if I'm sitting on my deathbed, I would have been happier going travelling. And I'm kind of still doing my job now with the podcast, really. So I've got best of both worlds.
That's true. But I think we should explain very quickly. In the first place, we wanted to leave just because like the everyday life at home wasn't really enough for us, was it? Going to work, coming home, watching TV, going to sleep. And we've never done a proper long-term travel trip, and we would have always regretted it, wouldn't we, if we didn't do it?
Yeah, for sure. Life isn't about living for the weekend or living for that 2-week holiday a year. We thought, let's live for every day, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what we're doing, and it is amazing.
It is good. And through this episode, we're going to explain it's not all great. There are ups and downs just as when you're at home. It's normal to have good and bad parts of your day. And that doesn't change when you're traveling. But I think the highs and the lows are just even more extreme when you're traveling, which is all part of the adventure.
Yeah, definitely. Now, before we move on to budget, which is the second part of this episode, let's talk about the last part of preparation. So travel insurance. This is quite a difficult one when you're going long-term traveling, isn't it? It
was a minefield. And the more research I did, the more confused I got, because you might do like a comparison search online. You think that's a good price. But when you actually look at the small print, a lot of travel insurance companies only cover you if you have that return flight back home. And we have no idea when we're coming home. So actually, the only company I really knew of that didn't care when your flight home was STA Travel. So we just went with them. It wasn't the cheapest, but what would have been the point spending hundreds of pounds if then when we needed it, they would have got out of it by saying, oh, but we only cover you if you've got a return flight. You don't have a return flight. So you've got to really ask all these questions. And it was a real pain in the arse. And also, we didn't know whether to buy a year or 6 months, because say we bought a year, if for some reason we had to come home for an emergency, say after 6 months, if you come home at all, your travel insurance is over, no matter how long you've paid for. So it is a real minefield. You just got to ask lots and lots of questions, and it's a boring, annoying thing, and you hope you're never going to need it. So in the end, you could have spent hundreds of pounds and you don't even use it, but that's what insurance is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of those things that I just hate paying for. And as well, it was an extra added difficulty for us because we have this podcast equipment with us. We're now making videos that's going up on our Patreon. So, we've got cameras with us. And so we've got so much equipment that's expensive, and we couldn't get long-term travel insurance, which you could add the equipment onto. So it's just all very confusing. But yeah, it's something that you need to leave time for to research. And so have a rough think of how long you think you'll be gone for. Like Nick said, we bought 6 months, but yeah, you need to make your own decisions on that one.
Yeah, and the most important thing is that you're covered for medical emergencies. Equipment or whatever, it's not life or death. You just want to make sure you're covered for medical stuff.
Let's move on to budget. Now, this is an interesting one, and we want to say from the get-go, we are going to be completely transparent with you, completely honest about the money that we've saved and how we're spending it. Now, we're 2 months into the trip, or over 2 months into the trip now. And like we said in the preparation section, that we tried saving about £1,000 a month, but we came away with 20,000 Great British pounds for 2 people for this trip. Now, you may think we're crazy, okay? You might think we're crazy, that's too little money to come travelling with, but you may also think, wow, I can't save that kind of money. But it's all about different lifestyles. If you can't save that much money, then you go away for less time or you stay in cheaper places. There's different ways of working it. But with that £20,000, if we budget £30 a day, that would be around £11,000 at the end of the year.
Yeah. So, in theory, we could maybe get 2 years travel if we can stick strictly to our £30 a day or be a bit under that. But we like to know that should at least cover us for 1 year. It should definitely at least cover us for that, and hopefully a bit longer. But 10 grand each, because it's 2 people. Some people will think that's not enough at all. But I guess we'll go into ways how we're going to make sure that lasts. £30 a day. It's £15 each a day. Accommodation, food, activities, travel. That's a lot to cover, isn't it?
It is, but because we're a couple, it does make it cheaper. So if you're one person, you stay in a dorm room in a hostel, or if you're a couple, you get to put that money together and get a double room, which is actually cheaper than buying 2 single beds in a dorm room.
Yeah, a lot of the time it is, yeah. And what we had to do is, and something that we're still learning really, is getting the balance right between being budget conscious, but also enjoying ourselves. Because there was one point, it was in Egypt. I know we weren't having the best time in Egypt, but we were staying in some really, really cheap places. And there are days where the budget was great because Egypt's cheap anyway, food's cheap and everything. We were doing really well on the budget, but we weren't actually enjoying ourselves. So it was like, wait, do we want to look back on this trip and think, yeah, we traveled for 2 or 3 years. That was great, but every day was a struggle. Or do we want to stay in some nicer places, do some nicer things, and the trip be a bit shorter? So that's a decision you've got to make with yourself, really. What kind of trip do you want? Because, yeah, you want to enjoy it. You don't want to struggle every day, do you?
Yeah, exactly. And there's lots of other tips that you can use as well. So we've got a bit of a rule, which might sound a bit offensive if anyone out there is working in the hospitality sector, but we don't tip.
Yeah, well, being British anyway... we explain to people.
I think there's going to be some Americans out there that are going to turn off now.
Like, let's get it straight. In our culture, we only tip in a restaurant if the service is good. Like, I know in the States, they might tip the taxi driver or haircut. And there probably are British people listening to this now who do tip for a haircut and things like that. But generally, we tip at restaurants if the service is good. We don't have jobs now. We don't have an income. So we're not in a position to tip people. We'll pay what we owe. We're not breaking the law. We pay what we owe, but we just can't do that because that's going to add up.
And I actually, like, not fully going into it, but I actually disagree with tips. If you want a certain amount of money for something, then put that as the price. And I will decide whether I want to pay that price or not. And that's fine. I shouldn't have to pay for something that you price up and then go, oh, actually, I need to give you some extra because you did your job. No, that if you're not happy with that price with no tip, then don't put it at that price.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I feel. But anyway, we're not in any way, shape or form we can't tip when this isn't a holiday for us. This is now a way of life, and that's just one of our rules. If you disagree, then fine, but if you agree, fine. But you need to make that decision if that's something you want to do, because over a year's time, think we're eating out technically 3 times a day for a whole year. We can't tip every meal.
Completely. If we were on holiday for 2 weeks, it'd be very different. We'd be having nice meals every day. We'd be having drinks. We'd be tipping. We'd be doing all this fun stuff. But this is not a holiday. Long-term travel is not a holiday. Your friends and family back home might think you're having a holiday, but it's not. It's life. It's normal life. Like I said, 2 weeks somewhere, we would tip and do all these things and live an extravagant lifestyle, but we can't do that now. We don't have jobs, and this is our life. It's not a holiday.
Talking about lifestyle, Friday and Saturday nights don't exist for us anymore, do they? We're making it sound like our lives are over. But yeah, Friday and Saturday nights don't exist. The way we're doing it is that we're not restricting ourselves that we can't go out, for sure. Like we don't have any jobs. We can have a hangover for days. It doesn't matter. But if it happens organically, if we're with a group of people and they want to go out and we're feeling the night, we're vibing it, then we'll go out. Fine. What we mean by no Friday or Saturday nights is that we won't go, oh my God, it's Friday night, maybe we should go out to a bar, and like feel that pressure. Luckily, again, the other added benefit of being in a couple is that you can stay in some nights and watch Netflix. And, that's a cheap night.
Yeah, there have been Friday and Saturday nights on this trip where we have just stayed in with some really cheap food and watch Netflix, and that's been great. But there's also been like one in Israel pops out to me, which we will mention when we talk about Israel on the podcast. We had a fantastic night out in Tel Aviv, and that was on a Sunday night. So what you mean by Friday and Saturday nights don't exist, in theory, because we're traveling, like every day is a Saturday, really. So there's no pressure to think everyone else is out on a Friday night, I should too. Just go out when it naturally happens. We don't have the money just to go out drinking for no reason.
Girls, I've got a tip for you. Okay, this is Amy's tip of the day, this one. With the budget. Now, ladies, there's something that we go through every month that the men do not. And unfortunately, something that I majorly disagree with the world is that we do not get sanitary towels or products or tampons for free. Even though, it's Mother Nature.
You can get condoms for free, can't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh no, let's tax the women on the blood that comes out of them every month. Let's go for that. Anyway, that's another podcast, some feminist podcast. Anyway, periods, the way to do it cheap. Now, you may not have heard of this because I learned about this on the podcast, actually. When we first started the podcast, we spoke about Vietnam with a girl called Amy.
Yes.
And she was telling me what a menstrual cup is. Sorry, boys, if you're a little bit squeamish, but I'm not sorry, because you need to grow up and deal with it.
Well, yeah, I think blokes who have had like a long-term girlfriend or a wife are just like, period, so what? But guys who haven't really had a girlfriend yet will be like, don't talk about periods, or like start getting awkward. But for most blokes, it's like, yeah, no big deal.
But yeah, so there's this menstrual cup. It costs £20, and you use it every month. And to clean it, you can't use any soap on it. You have to boil it. But it lasts for 10 years, girls. Honestly, I'm not going to get all environmental on you, but it saves the planet. You're not hurting anybody. You're not putting any chemicals inside you. And it's completely free every month, really. After £20, that's what? 3 boxes of tampons? It's such a good way to save money on your period every month. And yeah, I'll be honest with you, the first couple of months I used it was a little bit uncomfortable and it took a bit of getting used to, but it's so worth it, and so worth the saving the planet, saving your money, and being able to travel freely.
Very good tip. Important tip, really is. Something else on the budget when it comes to food. Obviously, you're not all idiots. You know that it's cheaper to like buy food in a supermarket and then cook it yourself. So we've done that a bit. We've actually eaten out more than I thought we would have, but a lot of the time it has been cheap food that when we've eaten out. But yeah, sometimes we do get accommodation with our own kitchen, so we cook our own food, and then you can have a meal and think, bloody hell, like for 2 people we've only paid like £2 or £3 for that, which is great.
Yeah, it really is. And you can buy kind of on bulk and then cook for later. You know, you might be able to take it for lunch the next day and things like that. That's exactly how I say, when you were saying that we made our own lunches for work before we left, I was cooked for more people for dinner and then just took that into work. It's the same premise here.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes we won't have 3 meals a day. Just like, because when you're at home in a routine, you just have 3 meals a day. But it's not the case when you're traveling. Sometimes we don't get up and out till like midday. So then it's lunch, and lunch is the first meal of the day. And then we have dinner. So that's 2 meals a day. Or have like one big meal to fill us up for the rest of the day. So you don't have to have 3 meals a day.
Yeah, so you can save a lot of money with that. And just something that Nick mentioned earlier, the Jordan Pass. So look at any country you'll go into, see if they do any deals with attractions. So I know in Greece, in Athens, they do a pass where you can go to 7 attractions for the price of 2. In Jordan, they have the Jordan Pass. Now, this is a unique one because it includes your visa entry into the country. So it costs 75 Jordanian dollars, which is roughly about 75 English pounds. Actually, it's a really easy conversion rate. And that 75 holds all 40 attractions in the country. So that includes Wadi Rum Desert, Petra. And your visa alone going into the country costs 40 Jordanian dollars. So you're making your money back really quickly. So just look out for offers which are working with the government, really, just to kind of save you money.
Yeah, we worked out the Jordan Pass saved us almost like
£100 each.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, because it's our visa and entry into multiple sites. So, yeah, that saved us a lot of money.
It was great. Like a little barcode on your phone, and just when you go up to the entry, they just scan it and then you're good.
Something else we also did in Jordan, actually, was team up with other travellers. And Couchsurfing was great for this. So we're going to talk about accommodation next. But Couchsurfing is not just accommodation. You can look for Couchsurfing events. You can also look for people who are doing trips. And they might say, in our case, I'm going from Amman in Jordan down to Petra. Who wants to get in a car with me and split the cost? Great. And we saw this guy who was doing just that, and we jumped in and we all saved a load of money, which was brilliant.
Yeah, and that's really important in countries like Jordan, because Jordan's public transport is non-existent, really.
Sucks.
Even in the capital city of Amman, you have to get a taxi or walk. That's your only option. They don't have buses. So that was why we went to Couchsurfing, and like you said, we teamed up with some other people, and they are taxis, but they're almost like long journey taxis, aren't they? They're cars that you rent for the day and they take you to the other side of the country.
Exactly. Private car. That's the way to get around the country, which is a bit strange.
And it is quite cheap, but yeah, obviously it's even cheaper when you get more people in the car.
Absolutely. But just to finish off budget, like I said, we've tried to stick to £30 a day. There are days where we do that. There are days where we go over, especially if you're going to places like Petra where you're paying for attractions. There are some days we go way over, but there are some days when we go under. I remember there was a couple of days in Athens because we were couch surfing. I remember we spent £4-5 a day, and this is great. But that makes up for the days where we go way over. But it does average, we try to make it average about £30 a day. But you gotta be there for me
Let's move on to accommodation. We actually have a question on this one, which I'll mention in a minute. But mainly, we were actually discussing this earlier when we were walking by the thermal baths, weren't we? Such a traveller sentence.
In Pamukkale.
When we were mountaineering in Pamukkale in Turkey. Anyway, yeah, we were talking about this, and we're really enjoying the way that we're travelling at the moment. So we're mixing up from hotels to couch surfing, Airbnb, and also we have stayed in dorm rooms, even though we keep that only if necessary. So we did that in Jerusalem because Jerusalem in Israel is incredibly expensive for accommodation. I don't really know why, but we were even paying £18 a night for a bed in a dorm room of 30 people in one room.
Yeah, but that was the only option, wasn't it? We couldn't find anything on Couchsurfing, and yeah, it was a crazy price, but we're mixing it up. And this is a good way, I think, to travel, because if you're always staying in a dorm room with people in hostels, that's going to get annoying because you never really get a good sleep because people keep coming in the middle of the night and turning the lights on and stuff like that. So it's nice to have a mix of Airbnb's actually been really good on this trip. I wasn't really a fan before, but we found some good deals on Airbnb where we've had like our own apartment, and that means we can cook our own food in the kitchen, do our own washing. Airbnb's been great for that, to have our own space. Hotels have been when it's necessary in very touristy places where it's harder to find an Airbnb or a couch surfing host. Couch surfing has been fantastic on this trip. It's been so much fun, but you can't couch surf the whole time because it's exhausting. Every day or every night with your host, you have to be like happy and social and do things together and hang out, which is great fun, but you couldn't do it all the time. But of course, the advantage of couch surfing is it is completely free. So that means the rest of the day, we've got all of our budget left for activities, food, or to save money and go under budget. So yeah, I really enjoyed mixing up between hostels, hotels, Airbnb and couch surfing.
Yeah, and it goes back to being a couple again. So sometimes you just want private time. So you just book a hotel or Airbnb. And like you said with Airbnb, that's good when you have your own kitchen, especially for people like me who are gluten-free, and I should be dairy-free if I'm being strict. Or if you're a vegan or anything like that, it's a great way to save money, but also make sure you're getting in a good diet, because that matters. You know, when you go for a month's traveling, then you can just kind of binge and be like, oh, it's fine, I'll just eat clean when I get home. But this is a lifestyle now. You can't keep that up if you are allergic to any sort of food, you know. But the other time that we change up our accommodation again is around my period. Girls, if you struggle like me, I have a lot of pains and stuff, I can't be couch surfing at that point, because like you said, you have to be social, and I love that side of it. But if you're in pain in bed and you can't get up, then you can't have that guilt laying over you because you're in someone's house. You just need your private space, and yeah, you just need to make these little adaptations to your travel to suit you, and that's what works for us.
And it's been nice on average staying like 3 nights in one place, because if you stay one night, you get there, you check in, you sleep, you wake up and you go. Like, that's no good. It's been nice to leave our bags unpacked for a few days. Actually, in Cyprus, we had an apartment for 5 days, and that was so nice to unpack and have a wardrobe, things you kind of take for granted when you're at home.
And a pot where you can put your toothbrush. That's been really good.
Oh, that's so good. That's lovely.
There have been a few things that we've been like, wow, I never thought about that at home, but that's amazing.
It's true. On the topic of accommodation, we kind of touched on it earlier when you said about Jerusalem, but some countries, it's cheaper for hostels, other places it's cheaper just to chip in together for a hotel room. So just be aware, just because a hostel's good in one place doesn't mean it's good in another.
Now, our question for this section comes from the Bottomless Pit podcast, who were on our Luxembourg episode and also our free walking tour episode. So hi guys. They asked, how are you budgeting for accommodation? Airbnb offers privacy but costs more than hostels. Now, like we're saying, we stick to £30 a day, but that includes everything, food, accommodation, and all of that. But sometimes, like for example, when I was talking about Jerusalem, you can't get a £30 hostel or hotel or whatever. So I guess we're just kind of, when we look to go to our next place, we look for the cheapest but with the most quality. So, you know, we're not staying in really horrible places. If it means that one place is £18 a night but it's disgusting, but there's one that's £20 a night but it's much nicer and it has a kitchen and we can cook and save money on food, then we'll go for that. So we're not always going for the cheapest. And
what I'm finding is, using these like hotel compare websites like booking.com or hotels.com, if you look for a hotel like tomorrow, if you leave it last minute, then I'm finding that all these hotels have last minute deals because they'd rather fill their hotel than have an empty room. So for example, in Konya in Turkey, we got a hotel which I must say was rubbish. It was horrible. But
you're not making a good point here.
Because I booked it the day before, they had a last minute deal going. It should have been like $44, but it was up for $16. I was like, yes, okay. So that ended up being about £12. Great. That's less than half of our daily budget, and that's accommodation for 2 people sorted. Airbnb, we've been trying to not go above like £20 a day. Bearing in mind it's for 2 people, and that would normally be a private place with a kitchen, which is pretty good. But of course, like I've said before, when we're couch surfing, it's great because accommodation is done and we've got all of our budget left to do fun things.
It also depends on what country you're in as well. So our first night here in Turkey, in the capital Ankara, we paid £9 for an Airbnb, and it was so nice, wasn't it? So it was a private room within an apartment where the guy lived, but his apartment was absolutely massive. We had so much space. He gave us towels. He even had thoughtful little soap baskets on our bedside tables. It was a really thoughtful one, and I think if you just look at the photos and make good judgments, then you can find really good places for cheap. So that was £9, yet we started in Greece. There's no way we would get an Airbnb for £9 a night. So you do have to adjust your budget. So Egypt and Turkey have been incredibly cheap, yet we've been to Greece and Israel, which wasn't so cheap.
Actually, I've just remembered one of the hotel rooms we booked in Israel was £60, but it was reduced again because it was a last minute deal, and this was the best I could find. It was an expensive place. It was originally £200 a night, this hotel, but because it was the day before and they wanted to sell the room, we got it for £60. Now, £60 from £200, that's great, but straight away, that's double our daily budget. So then we had to eat really like shitty fast food when we were there.
You say that, but that was the shawarma that we liked the most.
Actually, yeah, that shawarma.
That was really good shawarma.
Had so much flavour. It was amazing. But yeah, like I said, some days you're going to do well for accommodation, some days you're not. But it all averages out.
Yeah, and I think the important thing is don't beat yourself up about it, because I'll move on to anxiety with travelling a bit. That's the sort of thing I would beat myself up about. And I'm like, oh, like, this is so expensive. Maybe we should just spend our time in the room to make the money worthwhile, sort of thing. But, you know, you're not making the prices for these hotels or Airbnb. So don't worry about it.
And weirdly, whenever we pay like for a hotel room, which is already over our daily budget, strangely in my head, I think, well, fuck it. Like, the daily budget's blown. We might as well blow it even more. So for some reason in my head, I think it's okay to then spend even more money.
That is so true.
One thing I would just say quickly, a solo traveller, your options are going to be more limited. Really, if you're just looking at price, it will be a bed in a dorm room in a hostel. But of course, because we're together, it can work out cheaper, like Amy said, to get a hotel room or an Airbnb. But being a solo traveller, your options will be limited. We also heard from Doily, who asked, how are you guys finding long-term travel as a couple?
Ew.
So, yeah, it still can be challenging because we've gone from being a normal couple at home where, you know, you go to work, you don't see each other most of the day, to now we're together 24/7. And actually, this just goes down to different personality types. I'm actually okay with that, but you get a bit anxious or whatever. Like, you need your own space a lot more, don't you?
Yeah, I am definitely a type of person that needs my own space. Like, I love my friends, but I mean, I don't want to see them 24/7, and sometimes I'm like, okay, back off a little bit. I'm just that type of person. I get it. I definitely get that from my dad. But yeah, that sounds like I'm struggling though, and I'm absolutely not. We're definitely a couple that can spend a lot of time together and not argue. So, like, well, you say we're a normal couple before, but I don't think we really were, because I used to be self-employed and working from home a lot, and then you were working from home a lot. So I was actually thinking this morning, we are a couple that have spent a lot of time together. We've been together for 10 years, but we've spent more hours together than your average couple that's been together for 10 years.
Yeah, I think you're right. But then sometimes it was like we were together a lot and then not at all, because sometimes I'd be away for my job for like 2 or 3 days, or sometimes a week. So then we'd go from both of us working at home, so always being together, then going to me being away. But yeah, overall, I agree. We had spent more time together than your average couple, I think. But then, yeah, like, it's more me doing stuff to piss you off, where like I'm not doing anything on really, you know, on purpose to piss you off, but just some of my habits can get to you, whereas other people, it wouldn't really get to them too much. But I think, you know, we know each other well by now after 10 years. I think I know sometimes when just to shut up and give you some space, and I don't really need that much space from you. But no, I'm not saying that I'm a great person, I don't need space from you. That's just my personality. But we have come to the agreement that we will do the occasional thing separately. So, for example, we're recording now, but by the time this comes out, we would have already been and gone. But we're going to Istanbul soon, a really big, famous city for football. So I'm going to go watch a football game. You're not interested in football. I'll go to the game. You'll go to like a spa or something like that. We'll do something separately.
That is so stereotypical.
I'll go to the football. You go to the supermarket and get some groceries.
Go buy yourself something pretty, love. Something like that. Well, look, so you're saying that you think you do things to piss me off, but I don't think it is that. My irritability comes from me not having my independence. So like we said, I do like to be by myself, and I like even little things, like down to when I was at home, I would just jump in the car and go to the shop by myself. I wouldn't have to be like thinking, oh, am I safe? I'm in a place I don't know. Is it safe for me as a woman to walk down the street? And all those stuff that comes with traveling as a single woman, which like there's something I've never had to experience before. And you obviously being my husband, you get protective if I ever go out or something like that. I mean, he keeps me in a cave, so no,
but there are times on this trip where if one of us needs to go out and get something, I'm like old-fashioned kind of mentality of a bloke where no, I'll do that, don't worry, I'll do that. Whereas actually only the last few weeks I've thought, actually no, yeah, you go do that, but you enjoy doing stuff.
Yeah, I love being able to go out by myself and do things, and I just think I've lost my independence a little bit. But I mean, I'm not unhappy. By far, I would always choose this life over being at home. But it's just something I'm just trying to adapt to, really. But we've sat down and spoke about it. I think that's the important thing of traveling together, is that being able, any marriage or relationship, you just need to sit down and talk to each other. And we haven't argued about it. And I just sat you down and I said, look, I just need a bit more independence. Sometimes if we do need some more bottled water or whatever, I'll go out and get it out from the hotel rather than you. And yeah, just stop trying to keep me safe, maybe, like being maybe a little bit overprotective. But I find it sweet. It's a good thing, but I'm losing my independence. And also, like, you keep hold of the money. This isn't a sexist thing, or it's just it's easier for you. You always have pockets and I don't like carrying bags. So you kind of keep hold of that, but I keep hold of the passports and make sure that we've always got those. And we have different little jobs, really. We've kind of assigned to each other.
For sure. But yeah, me keeping the money is strange because now you don't have money on you. It's like you almost have to ask if you want to buy something, or like, only because I hold it and then I give you some money and you'll buy something. Not that you go shopping because we're on a tight budget, but you might buy something like chocolate bar and you're like, thanks for chocolate bar. And I'm like, don't say thanks. It's our money. You don't have to thank me just because I've physically given you the money. You don't have to say thank you, but I understand why you say it. It's strange. It's a psychological thing because I hold the money. It's like I'm giving it to you. Yeah.
So yeah, it's just kind of adapting, really, and making sure that you can sit down with each other and talk it through. I mean, this isn't a relationship podcast, so you know how to do your relationships and all of that. But that's kind of how we've been getting through. I think I'm really looking forward to Istanbul because, I think we're going to start doing things separately. And it goes for attractions as well. So there's been times where I've wanted to go into an attraction and you haven't. But we don't really want to spend the money twice for us both to do it if you don't really want to do it. And vice versa. Like, you want to go to this football game. I don't. So we're not going to waste the money on me going.
Yeah, and that's okay.
And that's okay. Let's move on to pace. Now, pace of travel. This has been something that it kind of shocked us at the start of our trip. We used to do trips a month or 2 months away where we'd do a whole region and we'd have to move pretty quickly to see what we wanted to see in that whole trip. But this one, we don't have a time limit and we can go as slow as we want. And we kind of struggled with that at the start, didn't we?
Yeah, so there might be a time where we are knackered and we just want to spend the day in bed watching Netflix, but we're thinking, but we're travelling, we should be out enjoying ourselves. But actually, no, this is our life now. Just like at home, you need down days. So we've now learned to sometimes be lazy, watch Netflix all day, and that's fine.
But it made me really anxious at the start. Like we said, we're 2 months in now and I'm just about getting used to it. But if we are paying for a room, because we wouldn't just lay in bed if we were couch surfing, if we're just in our room laying down, I just think like, oh my God, we're wasting this money. We're paying for this night here, but we're not using the day. And it would make me quite stressed and anxious. But we're quite lucky with this podcast and we're now making videos. So even if we are in bed all day, we are still working. So, the day isn't wasted and it's a good way to kind of calm down and repair while working at the same time. So I'm getting used to it now, but it was definitely something that made me anxious.
For sure. But yeah, just anyone out there who's doing long-term traveling, don't feel guilty for having lazy days. We all need them.
Homesickness, and we got a couple of questions with this one as well. The first one coming from Kolja or Kolja. Sorry, it's really hard to get people's names on Instagram. Anyway, he asked, how do you manage to stay close with your best friends from home? Skype can't compete with a glass of wine and things like that. And I completely agree.
Yes, I agree.
It can't compete, but this is one of the sacrifices of travelling. And well, in our case, we're gone for a year or two, and if you're good enough friends, they'll be there when you come back.
Yeah, and it's easy to stay in touch with lots of different apps on your phone and internet and things like that, and you see each other's Instagram feeds every day, so it is very easy to stay in touch. But yeah, face-to-face is always best. We've done a few little video chats with friends at home, but yeah, when we left, that's why we made sure we saw all of our friends before we left, because we knew we were going to be gone for a while, a year or two, and we'll just see them when we're back, really. But you're right, that's one of the sacrifices to long-term travel.
Yeah, and when you're talking about these apps now, this is not an endorsement to the app. They don't know that I'm saying this, and they're not paying us. But I found this new app called Marco Polo, and it's bloody brilliant. It's pretty similar to Snapchat, I guess, but you can have video conversations. So rather than sending a text, you can send a video. And it's just been really nice. So particularly with some work colleagues, I've got a video stream going on with them, and it's so fun to catch up, and we're kind of being ourselves, right? When someone goes on camera, they kind of stiffen up and they don't talk how they normally would. It hasn't really happened like that. I feel like we're all being ourselves on the camera, and it's really fun to keep in touch. And it's just about seeing their face, isn't it? And hearing their voice. So if I WhatsApp some friends, I mix it up between text and sending voice notes, because it's really nice to hear that voice, especially if you are traveling as a couple again. It's nice to hear that familiar but different voice, other than like just Nick's voice banging on all the time.
All day, every day.
Yeah, so I know Skype and that doesn't really compete with a glass of wine with your friend, but at the end of the day, time travel isn't possible. And what's it called when you go in like a little teleportation, there you go. It doesn't exist. So you either stay at home and work but see your friends, or you go traveling, and as well, in a couple of weeks time, one of my friends is coming out to meet us in Portugal, so obviously that's close to the UK, so it's a relatively cheap flight for him to come out and see us, and just kind of keeping in touch with people that way. And if they want their yearly holiday to come see you, then great.
Yeah, that's it. You travelling could be a great excuse for your friends to have a holiday somewhere they'd never normally go to. So friends can come visit you. Kolja, he also asked, what's the biggest miss about full-time travelling? People is an easy answer, but I mean home comforts.
And a similar question actually came from Ashley Hogan, who asked, what do you miss about home? Now, yeah, home comforts, like we said earlier, it's the little things actually, like a cup to hold your toothbrush, rather than having to like search for your bag, trying to find it, kind of living out of a bag. I miss my wardrobe, really, just the physical wardrobe, not the clothes, just being able to put my clothes on a hanger and put them in a wardrobe.
It's the ease of being at home, but then I just keep thinking to myself, the things that make home so easy are also the things that make home so boring. For me anyway. Like, yeah, really, it's nice to not have to keep unpacking a bag all the time, or to have your toothbrush in a holder. But for me, that's all just a bit boring. And when we were at home, I wanted more than that. So I'm fine with that. And yeah, people is an obvious one that you miss. But apart from people, and sometimes food or like a good cup of tea, apart from that, I don't really miss much about home. Netflix has actually been really good, because we can sit down for an hour or two, watch something on Netflix, just be comfortable. You don't have to do anything or say anything or go anywhere. And for that hour or two, you just feel like you're at home and you're watching your favourite programs. So actually, apart from people, there's not much I'm missing from home, thanks to like the internet and Netflix and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like you said with Netflix, it's just escapism, isn't it? So if you do ever feel homesick, then just sit down with a program that you're used to. Like we would sit down to Friends, get some snacks in, and just have like a night in. I think that definitely solves a lot.
Yeah, like Friends, we've seen them all a million times before, but just sit down for 20 minutes and watch an episode of Friends, and then you feel like you've been at home.
Right, moving on to our last section, which is tips and hacks of long-term travelling. Now, some questions for this one. Charlie Keep asked, how do you stay motivated to work out and stay healthy?
Easy. We don't. to be honest.
Well, let's talk about our life at home. So a few years ago, we religiously went to the gym, didn't we? We paid £100 a month for our gym membership.
Waste of time, waste of money.
No. I disagree with that. So, we paid £100, but that was for both of us. But that also included like jacuzzi, swimming pool and all of that. So I loved it. And all of your classes as well. It was like a private golf club place. It was well nice. I sounded so Essex then. It was well nice. But then since like the last few years, we haven't been going to a gym because we moved house, so we left that gym and couldn't find one that was nice enough. And so
we were saving for travel.
Yeah, exactly. That was another part of it as well. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're into getting your heart rate up, then you can always do that, can't you? You can run in any country. That's not an issue. Just make sure you got trainers with you, which you would do anyway. We've got trainers with us. I mean, you can do things for free on YouTube. You can get workouts. I love yoga. And my biggest regret for preparing with this trip was not bringing my yoga mat because it was massive. And I just thought I can't carry that around with me plus my bag. And I've actually now got a smaller bag with me as well. It's just too much to carry. So I know that once we get to South America where we're not getting on any more flights, I'm going to buy one, dump some of my other stuff, and I'm going to buy my yoga mat because that means more to me than some of the extra clothes that I've got with me. So yeah, yoga and meditation's a really big thing for me, but we keep fit from saving money. So if we get to a new place,
yeah, we won't get a taxi. If it's half an hour or even an hour walk, we've got our bags. Or,
we've never done an hour's walk.
Well, I'm saying we would though, wouldn't we? If we've got a big,
okay.
As long if it's not night time. When I first arrive in a city, if it's night, I'm just like, let's just get a taxi and get to where we're going. But truthfully, with what the kind of travel we're doing, I don't need to do any exercise. I'm actually losing weight as it is. So because we're walking around a lot, carrying our bags, that's actually a lot of exercise.
Strength training.
It is. We're going to attractions like Petra where you have to walk a lot. So our lives are very active. We're carrying our bags, like I said. Eating healthy is a bit tougher when you're on a budget because you want to buy cheap food. But actually, a lot of the time, the cheapest food is going to a market and buying fruit and veg and then cooking at home. So sometimes we're not doing so good when we're on the road a lot, eating food from a service station. But other times, so even this hotel we're staying in right now, where we are in Turkey, put on a cracking breakfast, loads of fruit and veg, and I actually think we're living a pretty healthy lifestyle. I don't need to do any extra exercise. I'm actually down to the last hole on my belt because I'm losing weight. I actually need to put some weight on. We've bought a bag of cookies just to snack on tonight. I need the calories. I do.
So from this episode, we've learned that, Nick, you're a very good charitable person and you lose weight easily.
And I know it's going to sound like an annoying problem for some people, but it's different for a bloke. You don't want to lose, you want to have a bit of stockiness. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
As a bloke, you don't want to be this like skinny, lanky bloke. But yeah, I'm honestly, if I did any more exercise, I'd be wasting away. So we do actually live quite an active lifestyle. I don't worry about exercising for sure when we're traveling. So next question, Juliet said she has a million questions, but she would like to know how we overcome the fear of failing.
This is a really interesting question because
we've had this before, haven't we?
Yeah, this is a really strange one because I'm definitely a person that worries a lot about different things and have anxiety, but this actually never crossed my mind. I don't really know how you can fail with travelling.
Yeah, because by not going, if you never go, you're always going to regret it. But if you go and then, come back home in a year's time with no money, at least you did it. At least you went out there. So we don't see how we can fail because whatever happens, we're going to see the world.
And we're learning though, so whether we like it or not. So maybe failing is going travelling and hating it, but you still learned something.
Yeah.
Like I hated Egypt and I hated Cuba. And I thought it was a really horrible place. I just wanted to leave and that I had really bad experiences with local people. But I now understand their culture so much more. So is that not a triumph?
Yep, and there are going to be ups and downs, whatever you do, even a small little adventure, a weekend away or a big year-long trip. There are going to be ups and downs, but you grow as a person and, you've had all these experiences. So, yeah, in our mind anyway, we don't see how you can fail. But it's not a silly question because we've had it before, so people do think this, so we understand why she's asked the question. But yeah, maybe it's just mindset. In our mind, we can't fail. Like you said, if you don't like a country, at least now you know, and you don't go there again.
Yeah, and just move on. I guess something that we could fail at. So I don't know whether we've actually ever explained this on the podcast before, but our long-term goal, this is almost a career move for us.
Yeah.
Because we present on the podcast and it's something we love doing. You may know that I worked in radio, and media is just really important. We love journalism. We love meeting new people and finding out new stories. So for us, a long-term career goal is to present documentaries either on the radio or on TV. So by doing this full time, we can make ourselves better as presenters and go out there, make films, meet new people, and you never know what might come of it. But it's that old age thing of you're never going to get somewhere unless you put yourself out there and take a risk. So that's what we're doing. And I would fully recommend anyone does it. We were trying to decide for a few years if this was for us. We ended up taking the plunge, and I do not regret it one bit. Even when I was having a bad time in Egypt and I was actually quite unhappy in Egypt, I would still have said this is still worth it.
Yep. But like you were saying, Amy, this is a career move for us. We're more likely to get to the next stage of our career in broadcasting, whether it be podcasts or videos. We're more likely to get to the next stage by doing what we're doing now, travelling the world, than staying in our hometown of Chelmsford in England.
Now, Juliet also asked another question. What do you wish you had known before you made the big decision to become a full-time traveller? Now, I have an answer for this one. I would like to have known that the sofa that we bought years ago that cost £2,000, I wish I'd known that we would not be able to resell it for that much money, because we sold it for £125 and it was in amazing condition.
We gave it away. We first put it up for £1,000 thinking that's a good price, and then no one bought it.
We didn't put it up for £1,000. I think it was like 750, because it's like a really nice leather electric sofa.
But we had to give it away in the end. £125. That is a steal. So yeah, we wish we knew that. But actually, apart from that, I'm struggling with this one. I don't know what I now know, which we didn't before. Maybe because we've been travelling on more shorter term trips.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I would recommend that if you've never been on a travel trip before, and I don't just mean a holiday, travelling and backpacking, then don't just go for the plunge, because it might not be for you. And there's been a few of the first trips, there was a lot of struggle in it. We loved what we were doing, but it was hard, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we now know, and we've learned all these tips and everything through doing it and experiencing it, that when we came away this time, we knew exactly what we were getting ourselves into.
Yeah, completely. Try maybe a month or a couple of weeks or whatever, and then once you get home, if you think that was great, I want more, then go for it. And another question on this topic, CT Catling on Instagram asked, are there any downsides to full-time travel? And yes, there are downsides to everything, really. There are downsides to full-time travel, aren't there?
Yeah, I've mentioned a couple of times about being anxious. I think at home I had a grip on my anxiety for sure, because I had a routine and I knew what I was doing. I love being spontaneous, but it actually has knocked me for six how anxious I've been on this trip. I don't know where it's come from. I mean, there's been a few personal issues in my life that's happened recently, and it's definitely come from that. But I think with the travelling, not being able to, if you have anxiety, you'll understand that it's part of it is about control and being able to make your own decisions, and that for me comes down to independence as well, because I care so much about Nick having a good time. If we do something that's my idea, in my head I'm wondering, like, oh God, have I almost forced him to do this? Is he happy? Is this what he wants to be doing? So like my mind constantly asks all these questions. So yeah, I've been very anxious, but that is definitely calming down now. I'm using Headspace, if you know that app. Again, we're not working with them. It's just something that really helps me. It's 10 minutes a day meditation. That's really helping me keep my emotions at bay and feel strong, really. But downsides to travel.
Yeah, I mean, it can be exhausting, and rarely there are times where, because, you know, back home, when you're in your home, that's like your safe place. It's like, there's no judgment there from anyone. You can do what you want. Even silly things like you can just come home and take your clothes off if you want to. Just,
I like doing that.
you can do whatever you want in your space. But We don't really have that anymore. Yeah, we sometimes have private hotel rooms, but it's not really our own space, is it?
Yeah, like
So,
someone can knock on the door at any minute.
yeah, it's like this kind of the safety and security of that is gone now. And that can be quite exhausting. And especially when you are traveling around couch surfing or even just getting in taxi, taxi drivers, when you're putting your trust in other people, it can be a bit exhausting as well, thinking, is this taxi driver going to mug us off? Are we paying too much for this food in this restaurant because we're tourists? Is this couch surfing host all right? Like, he said something a bit weird. Was that a joke or was he being serious? So that's quite exhausting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredibly heavy for the mind. And like we said throughout this episode, it's just you need to work out ways to adapt to make it work for you. So we take a couple of days into a hotel, we lay in bed for the day and do some work and just don't go out into the outside world unless we really need to for food or whatever. And it's just making it work for you.
Yeah, so before we wrap up, let's go through some hints and tips of our own that we've written down. Uber, I mean, I know I haven't invented Uber, it's not a new thing, we all know about it, but it's actually a great way to get around big cities. So Cairo, for example, is very cheap, and what I love about Uber, of course, there's no cash to exchange hands, it's all done through the app, the drivers can't mug you off, and it's a very convenient way from getting from door to door.
Second tip is to download a map if you're about to go somewhere. So for example, in a couple of days we're going to Istanbul, so tonight we'll go onto Google Maps, or there's also an app called maps.me. We've never used it, but we've heard loads of people rave about it. You can just download the map of that specific area and you can use it as if you have internet, because obviously Wi-Fi and internet is a difficult thing when you're traveling. Unless you have an unlocked phone and you get a local SIM, you can use your phone as normal with the internet, but we haven't actually done that yet. We're just unlocking our phones now, so maybe in a future episode we'll tell you how we get on with that.
Yeah, and so far we've just survived on just getting Wi-Fi when we're in people's houses or in restaurants, because I know it sounds like, oh my god, what am I going to do without Wi-Fi? But yeah, without Wi-Fi you're cut off from the rest of the world. You can't do research and things like that. So far we have just survived on connecting to Wi-Fi whenever we're in different places. But yeah, this is a good one to find your hotel or whatever. Download a map on your phone, so even without internet you've got that map and you can still search for places, and it just uses phone signal, not internet, to determine where you are, so you can see yourself on the map and you can get around. That's a really good tip.
And it also helps with translation. So I kind of like sometimes not having internet on our phone, because it forces us to talk to locals
sometimes.
if we're lost. Yeah, and then you can say, oh, and then you can show them on the map, we're here, I want to get there. And you have that interaction, which is really nice.
Another one would be, this is again kind of on the app, internet, phone topic, but a very good currency conversion app that Amy's got, which doesn't need internet to use it. I mean, obviously you download it at first, but once it's downloaded, you're good to go.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So the one I'm using is called Currency. There's loads of free ones, so whether you're on an iPhone or Android, whatever. And yeah, you just put in the currency that you want to change it to. My one only has 2 on there, but we met a woman the other day who had like 4 different currencies, because she was Egyptian. She'd just moved to Cyprus, the Turkish side. So she had Cyprus on there, Turkish, like US dollars, euros, and so she could see all of them.
Always good to stay on top of the money you're taking out of a cash machine. What is that in pounds or US dollars, wherever you're from? You need to be on top of that.
There's also a lot of budget apps out there if you want to be pretty concise on how much you're spending where. Then you can kind of put in, I've spent this much on accommodation today, this much on food. We're not actually using that. I'm kind of roughly writing down some numbers of what we're spending in the whole day, but that's mainly just to tell you guys, kind of in like 6 months time we can update you. Did we stick to the £30 a day? Did we go under it, go over it? So we can update you, really. That's mainly why I'm tracking it. If we didn't have the podcast, I'm not sure I would. Obviously, look at your bank account, check you've got the money, but I wouldn't be writing it down every day.
Yeah, online banking on your phone, that's another good one. Smartphones are actually so helpful for traveling these days, they really are. But online banking, stay on top of what money you've got in your account. But also one of my favourite tips is when you do splash out for a hotel, which won't be often, but when you do, take all their toiletries. I know people probably do this already, but take the free shampoo and the soaps they give you, because that's kept us going for so long. We haven't had to buy a lot of toiletries, which has been great.
Yeah, so be a Ross in this world. Friends.
All the soap and the shampoo.
Always use the hotel for everything they give you.
The salt, yes. The salt shaker, no.
Something we've found, we've got a new thing, haven't we?
We never knew about this, but it's a real thing.
Backpacker's finger. Yes. This is a new thing. So obviously, like every other day or every 3 days, we're packing our bags, and so we're pulling the zip, and we've packed to the brim really, and we're trying to do up the bag, which is really hard, and we're getting like zip marks on our fingers.
It's both of us. The set is an index finger.
Yeah.
Both of us, we've got like really dry skin on our index finger, and we said the other day, you're like, oh, my finger hurts, and I'm like, me too. Backpacker's finger. It's true. From always packing your bag, you're really dry skin on our index finger.
Poor us. Feel bad for us.
Yeah, and something I just thought of that you reminded me, Amy, was travel light. Wash clothes on the way, you know, especially Airbnb and couchsurfing are great because normally you can use the like washing machine in people's houses completely for free. So wash your clothes, pack light. You'll be glad that you're not going around with big bags, believe me. It's bad enough for us because we're carrying equipment as well. So we've had to pack even more light. And I am running out of clean clothes, but, and another thing, just wear a t-shirt 2 days in a row, or like socks is a big one, which sounds gross, but I've been wearing socks 2 days in a row.
Have you?
Yeah, and like
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, but at first you're like, oh, that's gross. I never do that at home. I wouldn't even wear a t-shirt 2 days in a row back home. But now I've got used to doing it traveling. It's fine. Like, just get over it and do it, and then your clothes will last twice as long.
Okay.
Just do it.
I mean, I'm not doing that. I've brought more clothes than you though, so you need to wash sooner than I do.
Yeah, that's why I wear them twice. But I'll draw the line at underwear. I know people say turn them inside out. I wouldn't do that.
You better not.
I'm not.
And then lastly on our tips and hacks, well, this has worked for us. So we don't book too far ahead. So we look ahead maybe 2 to 7 days just to see roughly where we're going to be. Because obviously if you're looking for a couchsurfing host, you want to give them some time to reply. But we're very different, aren't we? So I like to be more spontaneous, you know. I always think you never know who you're going to meet. You could meet someone that day, and then if you're hitchhiking and they say, oh, stay at my house, and take that local experience and like maybe cook with them and go with the flow, where definitely at the start of the trip you wanted to plan.
Yeah, I like having things booked for the lowest price. So I'm like, let's book now. We don't have to worry about it. We've got a good price. It's booked. We know we're going to do it. Great, mind at ease. But yeah, I do see what you mean, because there was a really nice point in the trip where we had 2 weeks in Jordan with not much planned. After 1 week, we'd done everything we wanted to do, and we were really close to the Israel border. So we thought, let's go Israel, and that wasn't planned, and that was really good fun. But yeah, especially if I see a cheap flight, I think, let's book it. Just book it before the price goes up. But the only time really where we have planned far ahead is we know we want to go to Brazil, and we've actually booked a flight on Christmas Day to Brazil from Portugal because it's a cheap flight. So we thought, let's get that locked in, let's get it booked. And on Christmas Day anyway, when you're traveling, it's not really that fun, so we'd rather be flying.
Yeah, and again, I mean, we don't need to tell you this, that look for dates like that. If you are long-term traveling, Christmas Day is really difficult for travelers because not only are you away from home, but you also are in a place where everything's shut. You need to prepare and make sure that you can get food in and things like that. It's a bit of a sad day really, isn't it? And you can't really do much, and you just want it to get out of the way so you can carry on traveling again. So look, we're trying to do it different this year, and we've tried to find cheap flights, which we've found on Christmas Day, so we're going to be in the air when that happens, so we don't need to kind of worry about all that.
Although the only thing I've just thought of, which we do need to worry about, is how do we get to and from the airport on Christmas Day? Will there be any taxis? And if there are taxis, they'll be really expensive.
Well, we answer Charlie Keep's question and we walk and we get some exercise.
All right.
So, yeah, or hitchhike, you know, we'll sort it out. It'll be fine. But I just want to wrap up this episode, and sorry if you think I'm banging on about it, but it's really important, and mental health these days is a really big thing. But we've been traveling for 2 months, and I've probably been the most anxious I've ever been, if I'm honest. And I've been at times quite unhappy. But even though I'm loving being here and I wouldn't change it, I definitely don't want to go home. But there's been times where I've just had to go back to the hotel room because I'm feeling so anxious. But I think it's really important to look after your mental health. Do things that will make you happier, even if it does cost a little bit more money. And also don't be afraid to tell people and speak out about it. And, you know, I'm not going to give you a lecture about mental health, but I have been feeling a bit like, we've been saving for 1.5 years, 2 years. to do this, and now I'm unhappy and I'm sad and I'm not feeling happy all the time. Why aren't I feeling happy? And feeling that pressure from social media and to look like, yeah, like I'm finally traveling, look at me having a great life all the time. And we are, and we're not lying on our Instagram when we say that we've had great days. But yeah, some days I haven't been, and I've been kind of beating myself up about it, haven't I?
Yeah, for sure. There is pressure to really enjoy yourself, especially if, we've been saving up almost, 2 years for this. And then if you're not having fun, you're like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? But yeah, just because you're traveling doesn't mean everything's great. You still got the same problems that you would have back home. And trust me, our Instagram, Instagram stories, that looks better than what it really is. And what I mean by that is, yeah, everything is not always fantastic, but days we're not having a good day and we just want to lie in bed and do nothing and watch Netflix, we're not going to take a picture of that and put that on Instagram because, like, I don't know, that's not something that people want to see. But the point I'm trying to get at is, yeah, we put out pictures of really cool things we're doing. Doesn't mean we're always doing cool things.
Yeah, it's not 100% of the time.
Absolutely. Just like normal life, you're going to have good and bad days. But I think what makes traveling exciting, and you look back and think, wow, what an adventure, is, I said it earlier in this episode, there are still ups and downs, but they're kind of more extreme. You're going to have more extreme ups,
Yeah.
and you're also going to have some more extreme downs. But that's the adventure. That's why it's more fun for us than being at home.
Yeah, and we are absolutely loving it, and we would completely recommend, if you feel this is something you want to do, then our advice is to absolutely just go ahead and do it. There's one life, just go do it.
Yeah, experience it. There's no way you can fail because you're just going to experience new things. And even if afterwards you think that traveling malarkey is not for me, at least now you know.
Now that concludes our long-term travel mini episode, even though it's not that mini. But we hope that has helped you and answered all your questions.
So thanks for listening, guys. Like Amy said, we hope that helped. We'll see you for the next episode of What the Faux, which is about Egypt. And Amy's already spoiled it because she said earlier that she hated Egypt.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, I broke that one down.
But it's a real fun episode, actually. And yeah, we did some interesting things in Egypt, even though there were ups and downs. But it's quite appropriate because that's just what we were talking about, ups and downs of travels. So make sure you tune in for that one. We'll see you guys soon.
And if you want to see Egypt or any of our other trips, then head to our Patreon because we are releasing videos on there and they kind of range from 15 minutes to half an hour long, and we give you all the tips, and you can not only hear what we're doing, you can see it for yourselves as well and meet the people along the way that we've met.
Yeah, and that's for patrons only, but check it out because it's really nice and cheap. It's good value. Don't forget, you can get in touch with the show. You can email us at whatthefauxpodcast@gmail.com. We are also on all the social medias, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and we are also on Patreon. For more information on all those things, you can go to our website at www.whatthefauxtravelpodcast.com.